All right, welcome on in everyone to First CSP for another edition of Sunday Special. Today we're actually going to be looking to update one of our previous videos, episode 58, where we did Scioto and their first issue. What we're finding is when we're able to provide more accuracy or have more information, we're going to use Sunday Special as another avenue to kind of update previous first CSP episodes with more information. And I think since this is the first time we're doing this on the channel, it kind of would be helpful to kind of walk you through the process of how we got to this point and then to this particular update video. So last spring, my father and I got together to try and organize our collection. We didn't really have any thoughts at that point of doing videos or anything like that. But as we were going through the collection together, we're like, this is, a pretty nice collection, and it would be nice to be able to share it with other people as opposed to just have it being hidden away like most private collections. So we got the idea at that point to start potentially doing some videos. Like, okay, let's get the most up-to-date information. So we looked to get the most recent collecting guide, which is the International Scout Collecting Association 2023 publication quarter 3, which is still technically in a draft online only edition, but it is essentially the most up to date. So we were going through and starting to look at what we had in our collection that were not just the first issues, which has been the primary of our focus for our collection, but also secondary issues or first adjacent issues that will help people with identification or determining which issue they have, etc., etc. And so we were using that primarily as we started our videos as the basis for then providing you all with the information on the council and their issue variants, etc. So when we go to the 2023 quarter 3 collecting guide and look at Scioto, it's going to tell us that there are 3 variations of the first issue: a T1A, a T1B, and a T1C. And that's essentially what we attempted to present to you in our first episode with this council, episode 58. As time went on, as we continue to do episode, as we continue to get feedback in the comments from you all, the longtime collectors and great viewers, we noted that there had to be more information here. And we said, well, we even know, going back to say like Pheasant Council, there used to be an A and a B, and now they're just saying there's just one first issue. So let's start to chart back and see where those changes were made, what councils have been affected by those kinds of consolidations within the collecting guides. And so we went back to our last hard copy, which is 2008, and then we went to the hard copy we had before that, which was 2004, and started to track through councils where the first issues and the variations of the first issues had been changed. We noted that there had been some changes to councils from 2004 to 2008, and then there have been even further changes from 2008 and beyond. So a lot of what we've started to do is primarily go back to 2004 as our main resource. Obviously, councils that have been created since then aren't there, and we're going off as much information as in newer guides as possible, but try and go back and bring that information to you. And so instead of the T1A, B, and C for Scioto Council, the 2004 lists that there were 4 variations: a T1A, T1B, T1C, and T1D. What the listing has changed to in the most recent guide was they took what was previously T1B and T1C and just said we're going to call both of these B, and the previous D will move up to T1C. Well, we've tried to go out to try and get those, to bring those to you. So let me not talk at you any longer. Let's head to the patch table. Here I've got the T1A at the top and the T1B from the 2004 listing. These are both cloth-backed patches. So we can take a look at that real quick, comparing the backs. That is how you're going to know that you're either dealing with the T1A or T1B, and they are cloth-backed. Where we're predominantly going to see differences between these two patches is going to be in obviously the text and the lettering thread. You'll find that the older T1 has kind of a gold colored thread with some mylar throughout, which they list as thin gold mylar letters with a silver mylar strand throughout in gold mylar fine thread. What it comes across as is pretty pale, especially by the standards of today's mylars. And we see that gets updated as we move into the cloth backed T1B. You can see how much brighter the gold mylar becomes in comparing to the T1A. And that really ends up being one of your largest distinctions between the two. They do list that the background, I note in looking at these that this is lighter in color blue and this is darker, but they've noted that the T1B, back in the 2004 guide, did list that the background varies in shade, so there may have been a range of this twill as they were going through the twill sheet to cut out these patches, and it might be some a little darker, some a little lighter. So there may be ones that are closer in color to what we have here in this T1A. That I just don't know. But again, in trying to provide you all with the most accurate information, either for entertainment purposes or because you're trying to identify as a collector, we hope that this is in some ways helpful in looking at those. So that is, and we'll take a look at the backs one more time. Both are cloth gauze backs, so there's not as much you see on the back that's necessarily telling. They're both using white lot stitching, borders are both white, etc. So not as much assistance in making differentiations there. Both of our T1A and T1B seem to be cut a little close to the border, but that can change quite a bit. I've seen some others where the Ohio and Kentucky have a little more space around them, or the Scioto Area Council at the top is cut closer and there isn't the spacing there. That seems to vary throughout the production runs and is not necessarily super consistent. Now, obviously, the other two, which you have already seen before, but we have relabeled, are the reproduction, which is actually the T1D now associated with Central Ohio 441. They produced it, and the T1C. Both of these, if you can get imaging of the backs, are pretty easy to identify because both of these are plastic backed patches. What we did not have in the first episode 58 was the T1B that was a cloth back. So these are pretty hard to confuse for the original just because of their backing, if you're able to get a picture of the back. And really the reproduction done by Central Ohio, the T1D as it was listed in 2004, doesn't really look close enough to be confused. And again, you'll find that the T1C from 2004 has a much darker bird than the T1A and B do. Put the T1A over here to the side. Again, that bird is much lighter. The birds are pretty close in color, as you saw with the T1A and T1B. So this is the first of a couple of update videos that you'll see on subsequent Sunday specials, where we have gone back into older collecting guides, found that there is more information, and tried to update the collection to have those variations to provide you the most detail for identification. We do hope that you appreciate that. We're having fun trying to continue to round out the collection with those additional pieces, again, to provide you guys with more content, of more entertainment, and help in hopefully identifying as well. As always, we'll be back again tomorrow with another new episode of First CSP, so I hope you tune in for that. We want to thank everyone, as always, for watching. Hope you enjoy these updates as well. There will be a few more that we've already identified and tried to collect those pieces to update in subsequent Sunday specials. So until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.